Derek, hi, how you doing? All right, I've got your work up here. I have your post open too. Um, yeah, good job describing intent here. I don't think there's anything that needs to be specifically addressed in the writing. Actually, I'm going to address all of this, but I don't think there's anything that specifically needs to be addressed. All right, so good job. Thank you for including that written rationale. Let's go ahead and jump over here. I think that, this morning I was looking at your work a little bit earlier this morning, and I noticed something that's actually really cool. Um, uh, your monogram, DP, Derek and please forgive me if I'm not pronouncing this correctly, Pronovost, is also DP, design and photography. That's cool. I love that. I just noticed that. Very cool. Okay, so anyways, let's go ahead and talk about typography first. All right, so we got the logo. Then we've got the contact information. By the way, let me just include too exactly what should be, and I've got my notes over right here. So this is what should be included in your business card. Logo, name, address is optional in a business card. The telephone, fax, or cell, email address, job title, web page URL, and your LinkedIn page if applicable. Next is elements in the letterhead. You got to have your address in the letterhead. Good job there. Name, logo, address, telephone, fax, and or cell, email, and web URL. And then everything should be included in the leave behind. And I'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. Let's talk about typography first, okay? We've got some pretty consistent type. That's good. Now, one thing I would recommend is this. Is right now you've got your logo assembled here, and it looks like you're trying to assemble your type to match the height of the logo from the baseline of the design and photography to the cap line of the monogram, right? But what that does is that adds too much kerning here. This is just too, kerning is the space between lines. I would recommend that we just kind of move these a little bit closer. You can either align it to the bottom of design and photography or to the top of DP, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be the same height as the logo. So let's reduce the space in between those lines. Okay. The next thing I want to recommend is this is and now you've got this the design element, and you said that the negative space was bothering you. I'm I'm very, very generous with white space. I love using white space. I think if as a designer, you learn how to use white space as a design element as opposed to leftover negative space. So once you learn how to use negative space, you'll see that the negative space kind of acts as a design element. So you don't necessarily want to fill in all the negative areas with elements. Okay, I think it's okay in this particular case. I think that what we can do here, though, is we want to be consistent with this presentation. So right now, it's along the top and the bottom. Okay, I don't recommend the bottom. I think that's overkill. I think the top also over here, see how you have it on a diagonal? I would recommend you follow that lead here on the letterhead. Now, don't be afraid to place this type right over the diagonal, but you only want to take up about that much area. Okay, it's just a design embellishment. It shouldn't really be a full-blown design element, just an embellishment, right? So at that point, we take a look at the business card and we do the same thing. Just place the thing up here. I think you could even place a little bit more of an angle here, just a little bit less. Place it right there, and then this is ready to go. Follow the same lead on spacing. Don't need that there. You can leave it on the back as well. But follow the spacing that I had mentioned earlier in the contact information for the business card. You might consider pulling this down a little bit in the composition too. I think it's a little close to the top of the card. Okay, leave behind is interesting. I think it's a great idea, right? But there's a couple of things we want to do. Right now, all you have is DP. You just have your logo on. And then over here on the frame, you've got your contact information. That's great. I recommend using all the contact information on the frame. Now, or the leave behind. Now, the way I see it is this, is I don't know, does the image come with the leave behind package? If it does, I don't recommend doing that. What you can do is you can place a card in here and maybe with a clever saying on it, show off your typographic skills, place a card in the frame that says, something like, something about images. Try to draw a connection between using the frame and yourself as a designer. So, something like frame your next hiring decision by choosing the right designer or something like that in a little card, right? So that you're drawing a connection between your branding attempts and the frame, and it's adding a little relevance to the frame, okay? So what I'm saying is the frame itself, so put a little card in there, so, frame your next design decision wisely, choose the right designer or something like that, right? I don't recommend the contact information on the outside of the frame. The reason being is because I think it'll be more apt to be used and saved without, no offense, but, you know, as professional designers, we look at a utilitarian leave behind piece, but something that we're going to put on our desk, we don't necessarily want the logo front and center. Do you see what I'm saying? So in order for this to be used, my recommendation is to leave the front blank, just white, okay, with that card in there, so that they know that they can replace the card and put a 6x4 image of their choice in there. I don't recommend including an image. Okay, at that point, on the back or the sides of the frame itself, I'm sorry, the holder, you can place your contact information. So I would recommend on the back. So again, the front is just a clean frame holder with an image in it. It's really likely to be used. Then on the back of the frame, that's where you would include your logo and your full contact information. Okay, do you see what I'm saying? So we don't want to include all of the contact information on the frame because there's a less likelihood that a designer is going to use it. If it's just a clean, innocuous frame, the designer will use it, and your logo and your branding materials are on the back. So that's going to remind that viewer of your branding, throughout their use of the leave behind. I think this is a creative enough leave behind that it will. I think that it'll definitely help. But I think it's really, really important in that card that you get some sort of a connection made between framing and your branding, okay? And I use that example, frame your next employment decision wisely by choosing the right designer. Something like that, right? So think about my comments, think about my thoughts. I'm by no way, shape, or form trying to take over your project. I don't want to direct you in any direction. I want to give you my professional design reactions to this as a hiring professional, and then make your decisions accordingly. Okay, at this point, of course, the important thing is right now is to get with me if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or if I can provide any additional clarification. Other than that, it's an outstanding start, and it's a really, really good branding package so far. Just working really, really nicely for you. All right, Derek, thank you so much. If you have any questions, let me know.